elimination rounds some sort of creature deck. We're not talking about Reanimator or Storm or any of the matchups where lands fundamentally struggle to do anything impactful. So Kurt really on a good pace here to possibly take home the trophy for one of Legacy's oddballs.
Yeah, lands has some great matchups and some bad matchups. Kurt was able to dodge his bad matchup with the help of Jeremy Shu. Jeremy, last round, 2 games to 0, defeated Jack Kitchen playing Imperial Painter. Certainly a combo deck with main deck Blood Moons would have been quite a nightmare for Kurt.
So Kurt, as the third seed here, is going to be on the play. It looks like he has an excellent opening hand with multiple explorations and light from the loam, so he'll be able to get the ball rolling pretty fast here.
All the pieces have been assembled. And yeah, he will certainly, this is a great hand for him. If you haven't watched the deck much, you'll get to see kind of the raw power of this deck take shape. And Kurt's going to go ahead and keep. We'll see if Jeremy's keeping. Remember, Jeremy, this is interesting game 1. Normally, lands just kind of gets to roll over creature decks game 1. Because they're in the top 8, Jeremy knows his opponent's on lands. You know, you almost wonder how that affects him. You see his hand is 2 days as a ponder 4 lands. He's got to be pretty unhappy with that hand.
Yeah, he's going to keep. It's really important for him to find pressure early on. We'll see Kurt here lead off with a basic force and attempt to resolve exploration.
Yeah, and because he's on the play here, this is going to resolve. Gets the exploration down under days, and immediately can follow it up with Rishadin Port. And here's where lands is a real gentleman of a deck.
Yeah, great start here. Jeremy with the option of cantripping or using a wasteland this turn. Now, Kurt, I do not believe, has another land in his hand. It is just Punishing Fires, another exploration in this loam. So if Jeremy fires off this wasteland here, he could really set Kurt back if he doesn't draw a land next turn.
Yeah.
The instinct here is to play your land in cantrip looking for action, but
yeah. Well, you know, and it's a touchy thing. You know, trying to land screw the lands player can be a pretty touchy thing to do. First of all, you know, Kurt has about 33 top decks that find a land here. And if he wastelands the land, the problem is if Kurt draws the land, then his loam just finds 2 cards. He actually recoups the land immediately, plays another one, and is right back in business.
right.
Turn 1 ponder, though, from Jeremy Shu. What is he looking for, though? You know, he knows his land's going to get locked down, right, by that Rishadin Port. So what's his defense? What's his game plan?
He needs to find pressure fast. He has a lot of soft counters in his deck. If Kurt gets time to develop his mana, those aren't worth very much. If he puts Kurt under the gun and forces him to tap out for things, suddenly cards like these can be quite good.
Yeah, and no land drawn for Kurt there. He does draw life from the loam. And Jeremy's going to let that resolve. Yeah, amusingly enough, Kurt doesn't have another land there, so the days would have worked. But Kurt's going to go ahead and then fetch for Taiga and cast another exploration.
Yeah, and Kurt has sort of dodged a bullet, perhaps unbeknownst to himself here, as if Jeremy had fired off that wasteland, there could have been a lot of trouble.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, yeah, he could have fired off the wasteland, have been in trouble. And then when we look at the possibility of days happening here, you know, Jeremy can't exactly daze because his opponent has a Rishadin Port in play.
So Jeremy is going to go ahead and daze the other exploration, and I'm sure if Jeremy had been able to see the contents of Kurt's hand, he would have sequenced this much differently, but that is part of the problem. It's really hard to believe that you can
Screw the lands player.
Yeah, exactly. But if he had dazed that loam, for example, Kurt would have had no follow-up. It would have been exposed that he had no additional mana in his hand.
Yeah.
He could have gone for the wasteland perhaps the following turn.
He actually could have gone, you know, the Bug Delver plan oftentimes is a wasteland daze style deck, a mana denial deck. Jeremy abandoned that plan, probably rightfully so. It's peculiar that actually had he gone for the mana denial plan, it possibly could have pulled it off against lands.
Yeah.
As it is, Kurt has 3 lands in play, and it looks like with Loams in his graveyard, he'll get just a lot more. Jeremy replaces his 1-drop and does have Deathrite Shaman down. Loam is dredged by Kurt, and only 1 extra land in the graveyard. It is another exploration, a crop rotation, and a land.
And Kurt's starting to get the ball rolling here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, every turn is dredge Loam, cast Loam. And he finds a second Rishadin Port and the Wooded Foothills, both of which can be played thanks to exploration.
And this is what I was talking about it being really important for Jeremy to get a start, because he has, you see days in his hand. These cards just don't have a very long shelf life in this matchup. They quickly get invalidated. Kurt's really starting to run away with this game. Even if it looks fairly innocuous right now, he's really starting to develop his mana quite a bit here, and that Loams is going to find more and more utility lands.
Yeah, Kurt finds 2 lands, plays them both, casts Punishing Fire on Jeremy's Deathrite Shaman, and passes back the turn. Jeremy now with 1 land to Kurt's 5. And you're right, he is currently under the gun here. We see 2 Reshit imports from Kurt, so Jeremy knows that his mana is already being threatened pretty hard. Ponder by Jeremy does not find what he's looking for. He's going to go ahead and shuffle off the Ponder.
And so many things in Jeremy's deck are at risk of getting cut off. If Kurt's able to find Grove of the Burn Willows, then his Delver of Secrets and his Deathrite Shamans are no longer going to be functional because of Punishing Fire. If Kurt starts finding Wastelands, he can cut Jeremy off of mana entirely.
Yeah. Well, is it? And I oftentimes describe landscape. I describe lands as a prison deck. Really, eventually Kurt takes away your ability to play the game. It's going to be Wastelands for your non-basics, Reshit imports for the rest of the lands, Punishing Fires for your creatures. Eventually he's going to try to. Jeremy won't be able to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
In the quite literal sense, will not be able to cast a spell.
Even these 2 Rashad imports in play are really troublesome for Jeremy.
Yeah, he hasn't assembled, so the lock is only partially assembled. He hasn't found the Grove of the Burn Willows yet. He hasn't found a way to win yet either, but the way to win is a pretty incidental thing from this point. He doesn't need to rush to find that.
Yeah.
All right, and he's going to go ahead and crack that Wooded Foothills on end step anyway, just for the purpose of getting another land in his graveyard so he gets full value off these Loams. And breaking down for a second what a lands deck plays in terms of lands, we're going to, there's 35 lands in the main deck. Most of them are 4-ofs. We see...
And sorry, at the risk of interrupting you a little bit there, Kurt has just picked up 2 huge pieces of the puzzle. Grove of the Burn Willows, which sets up his soft lock with Punishing Fire, and Wasteland, which can set up a hard lock on Jeremy's lands.
Yeah, so he actually dredged into 3 lands there, and those are, among the utility lands he plays in his deck, the Wasteland, the Grove of the Burn Willows, those are 4-ofs in the deck. They are the integral parts to the lock.
Yeah, and Jeremy is looking at Force of Willing this loan, but it's not a long-term plan. This is just going to keep happening.
Yeah, and in fact, Kurt has the secondary Loam in his hand. But Jeremy's got to be concerned, right? If Kurt gets a chance to cast this Loam, he can actually get Wasteland, waste Jeremy's first land, then Loam again, get Wasteland again, play the exact same Wasteland for a second time. And Kurt gets all 3 of the lands he dredged this turn. We'll see he can set up Punishing Fire lock. He can also Wasteland as many times as he wants. So, first Wasteland will take care of Underground Sea. And we will see whether he wants to play that Grove or just get Wasteland again. We see port at the ready. He can port to, well, I was gonna say he can try to tap down Misty as well. He's gonna attempt to tap the Misty Rainforest. Jeremy does not want to let it get Wastelanded.
Yeah, that prompts a response here.
Remember, fetch lands don't just sacrifice to find a land, they have to tap and sacrifice to find a land. Typically a piece of information that's not very relevant to the card, but in this situation actually does mean, you can turn off a fetch land by tapping it.
Comes up a little bit sometimes. Rashad Import's the most frequent time it comes up in Legacy.
Yeah, actually plenty of lands, this is the interesting part. There are plenty of lands in Jeremy's hand right now. The bigger problem is that Kurt plays 2 lands a turn, and one of them is going to be Wasteland at every turn.
Yeah, and Jeremy doesn't have a long-term solution to recurring Wasteland. Again, his deck's all non-basics, so he has to try to win the game quickly here, and his hand is just not suited to do that.
Yeah, well, you'd have to disrupt the graveyard to stop the Loam engine from happening, but thanks to Punishing Fire and Grove of the Burn Willows, the only disruption spell Jeremy has main deck, which is Deathrite Shaman, can't really do its job. So he doesn't have a way to stop the recurring life from the Loam. He doesn't even have basic lands. So if he had basics, he could stop Wasteland. To be fair, though, if he had basics, he would stop Wasteland, but not stop Port.
Mm-hmm.
The prison deck really is just, it's cutting off all the options.
You see Kurt there fire off another Loam, just setting up for next turn.
Yeah, he gets Wasteland again. This will give him the option to double Wasteland next turn.
And you can see Jeremy's has, he has cards in his hand
Sure.
that are castable, traditionally good bug Delver cards, but you can tell he's just trying to even try to think of a route that he has here.
Yeah, and this is pretty good. You know, he ponders here off a second duel into a pair of Delvers. You know, 1-mana threats, pretty good against lands. However, not good against Punishing Fire. He's going to go ahead and shuffle. He doesn't realize that they die to the Punishing Grove going on.
Yeah, the only threat that Jeremy has in his deck that's really meaningful at this point is one of his Tombstalkers. But Kurt's going to be able to cut off Jeremy from having that much mana in play going forward.
Yeah, next turn, Kurt's going to double Wasteland Jeremy, and at that point, Jeremy will get 1 land a turn, and it will get hit by Wasteland every turn. Even if the land is a fetch land, Kurt will tap it with Port and then Wasteland it every turn.
Jeremy has a Force of Will in hand that allows him to stop this once, but stopping it once is not what he needs.
Yeah, and actually, this is a line here, thanks to Tranquil Thicket in Kurt's hand, I'm not even positive it will stop it once. So say he Force of Wills the Life from the Loam, Kurt can dredge the Life from the Loam immediately again with the extra draw that Thicket gives him, get back the Wasteland, and go for the 3rd Wasteland. And Loam is dredged, we see Karakas, Maze of Ith, and Mox Diamond. Maze of Ith cuts off the Tombstalker out you were talking about as well. And he will Wasteland. He will cycle Tranquil Thicket to get another card in the graveyard. Cycle Tranquil Thicket. Now this is how he actually draws cards. He's going to go ahead and loam all 3 lands back. Remember, he has not played a 2nd land this turn. So this is where the deck just really gets unfair.
Yeah, and Kurt's also found a Tabernacle, which in conjunction with Wasteland Lock means that Jeremy's creatures are soon going to be entirely locked out of the game.
Right.
Jeremy's going to swim upstream for a little bit longer here, but he's not long for this world.
All right, yep, Tabernacle. And yeah, the loam was forced, so he's got 1 more turn with 2 lands. Can he make a Tombstalker? That'll be a question for him. Looks like he can, except he doesn't have the Tombstalker.
Yeah, well, he got ported on his upkeep here, so he's back down to 1 mana on this turn.
Yeah, he'll be at 1 mana for the rest of the game. I don't think he has a way to break the lock that's been assembled.
No, not that ship has sailed.
So on 1 mana per turn, let's look at a rundown of Jeremy Shu's 1 mana spells. So if he only gets 1 mana, he can cast Deathrite Shaman, he can cast Delver of Secrets, he can cast Ponder, Brainstorm, and that's actually it.
Yeah.
None of those cards, and because both Deathrite and Delver are answerable by Punishing Fire, I don't believe he has a live draw.
Yeah, or even just the Tabernacle that's in play in conjunction with the Wastelands. I mean,
sure.
Kurt has this covered on multiple fronts.
Yeah, so at this point, it's kind of just playing out the formality, making sure that Kurt executes the lock correctly. So game 1 on the draw can be pretty difficult for creature decks against lands. Sometimes they really don't have a line to play to.
Yeah, and remember, this all goes back to what Kurt's earlier development was looking like here. I think Jeremy was generally playing properly, assuming that Kurt had the normal tools in his hand. But Kurt was actually tight on mana early on and really needed to get that loam going. If Jeremy had used his disruption really proactively, maybe the game looks a little bit different. But ultimately, Jeremy couldn't even find threats. So given enough time, Kurt's obviously just going to be able to assemble his fortress. But
yeah, and lands is a deck that we talked about earlier has actually stood some development recently. It used to be that Mishra's Factory was its primary kill con, or sometimes they play maybe in cards like Nantuko Monastery, some form of manland. We saw Creeping Tar Pit, Celestial Colonnade, Raging Ravine, all as options. But it's really moved toward a more explosive combo-oriented win con in now Dark Depths and Thespian Stage.
yeah.
And walking through it, Kurt will dredge loam once again, finding more wastelands. It's going to get dazed, something that Kurt can certainly pay for.
Yeah, this is just to allow Jeremy to get a next turn with blue mana or sandbag a blue source for a little while.
Yeah, and we see 3 lands returned. He's going to go Wasteland and Thespian Sage, so now half of the combo assembled. And Jeremy, with no permanents, Prison Deck has successfully locked out the Delver player. And see where he's motioning here. Jeremy, ever the soldier, he's playing it out here. He wants to see, he wants to guarantee here that the sideboard is the correct 15 cards.
The move of a desperate man.
It's like, can I get a win that way? That's my. Okay, what I like about it is he successfully calculated his outs. He's like, well, my out is that you didn't de-sideboard. May I see your sideboard? But then Jeremy showed it to him, and well, that out too was locked out of the game.
So a very dominant Game 1 performance by Kurt Spiess in lands. Welcome back to the booth, Patrick Sullivan, Matthias Hunt. Star City Games, Legacy Open in Baltimore. We're in the semifinals where we have 3 of Legacy's, the decks you're most familiar with. We have Rug, we have Esper Deathblade, we have Bug Delver, and then
And the
Kurt
wild card.
Spiess
Yep.
carrying the flag for all of the format's devotees with lands.
Yeah. So we bring you back in the booth because, once again, we have a trivia question. We are in the top 4, which means this trivia question will be for 6 months of Star City Games premium content. And with our special deck here, this is Kurt Spiess's lands deck. We're going to go ahead and ask a question about that one. We're looking for the name of a card. This is one of the utility lands in the lands deck. And we're looking for a card from Ice Age only, that is utility land in Kurt Spiess's deck.
This is a tough one.
This is a little bit of a tough one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is-
I'm
you
gonna
might have to
throw
look
it out
this
there.
up. You might have to look this up.
We're looking for, what Ice Age land is a one-of utility card in Kurt Spiess's land deck. As a hint, it does have a cumulative upkeep on it, so if you've seen the deck before, that may give you some hints as to where to look.
Yeah. A sweet mechanic from Ice Age. If you like playing upkeep costs, you probably really like playing
Lots of
cumulative. Anyhow, again, the
It's
rules
one
of
of
this, please tweet this at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. 1 correct respondent will be drawn. Make sure you're following us so we can get that information to you.
Really one of those feel-good mechanics, right? Just
Right.
pay more and more until you can't, and then
Yeah.
you lose your cards.
Just, you can feel the sinking into the quicksand. A really good feeling in games. We're going to go to the sideboard here. I'm going to let you start off with Kurt's list, rather.
All right, so out of the sideboard, Kurt has a lot of cards, most of them for the combo matchups. Those tend to be his bad ones. Fortunately, Jeremy's not a combo deck. We do see 4 combo decks. He can play Chalice of the Void, Sphere of Resistance, and Thorn of Amethyst. None of those probably come in here. What he does have is he has extra cards at Dark Depths if he needs to be faster. It possibly does in this matchup. He has a Bazooka Bog if he's worried about graveyard decks. However, Jeremy's not one of those. Remaining cards are Primeval Titan, Crop Rotation, and Krosan Grip. In all honesty, I would not be surprised if Kurt leaves the entire sideboard in the sideboard.
Yeah, he's about as well situated in Game 1 as you can be here. On Jeremy's side, he has very little action. He has a Creeping Tar Pit, 2 Lilianas, an Engineer Plague, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Vendilion Click, a Submerge, 3 Disfigure, 3 Spell Pierce, 2 Golgari Charm. I can see the click coming in. If Kurt rather gets a little bit sloppy with Loam, he might be able to tag it. He may want additional enchantment removal and Golgari Charm as it can fight over mana bonds and exploration, but he wants an additional land in Creeping Tar Pit because so much of Kurt's plan involves Wasteland, but there's not a lot going on here. Not a lot that interacts with Loam.
He did not show up with the requisite amount of graveyard hate, and the kind he did play was the wrong kind for this matchup. It's Grafdigger's Cage. Would have been great had he been playing against a Reanimator strategy, but Cage actually does not interact with Life from the Loam at all.
Now, he still has his 4 main deck copies of Deathrite Shaman. That's doing a lot of work.
Still his best card.
Yeah, doing a lot of work at the graveyard matchup. So it makes sense that Jeremy would have skimmed a little bit on his anti-graveyard sideboard because his Game 1 is so well situated. And especially if you're thinking about the traditional combo decks. Against Reanimator, he has all manner of soft permission, and he has Deathrite Shaman as well, so very good matchup there. But his soft permission is worth very little against lands. He can stop Loam for a little while, but ultimately he's going to get avalanched by it unless he's able to apply a lot of pressure.
Yeah, so my guess is that from Jeremy Shu, we'll actually see him play an even more aggressive game than he normally can. I think he will board in Spell Pierces and maybe even Golgari Charms, just because what he needs to do is he needs to stop Kurt from ever starting the lock. Once Kurt resolves and dredges a Loam, Jeremy's already really far behind. So what he's going to have to do is, maybe Spell Pierce that first Loam, like play a turn 1 Deathrite, then Spell Pierce the first Loam and get it right away.
Yeah, the Pierces can be good early on as long as he has some form of momentum. And the Hymn to Thorax are so bad in this matchup that I can only assume those hit the bench.
Yeah, there's so many cards to side out. Hymn to Thorax, Abrupt Decay, not great. It's fine. Certainly, that I think he can board in narrow cards like Spell Pierce, even though it doesn't do much.
It does facilitate an overall game plan of being aggressive and disruptive early on.
All right, so we are on to game 2. We see the turn 1 Deathrite in Jeremy's hand. He has Deathrite and Daze on the play. That's what he needs to do here.
Yeah, he's got a Wasteland too. He's got a lot of tools to work with.
All right, so can he mana deny the mana deck? We will see but Kurt starting on 6 cards.
And the Deathrite Shaman gives him a lot of action against Loam, too. So a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, Jeremy would perhaps like to have something like Delver of Secrets or Tarmogoyf in this hand as well, but...
All right, so just to give kind of a, I want to take the temperature on the matchup here. So if looking at the board right now, you could choose to be Jeremy on the play with these 7 cards, or Kurt on the draw with 6 cards. Which side do you want? This is about as good of a hand as you can get, right?
I think Jeremy's slightly favored from here.
Okay.
I think I would take Jeremy's spot if I had to choose one.
Right. And that's a lot to be said. This is a Delver deck on the play against a mulligan, which is usually just, where Delver becomes an overwhelming favorite against pretty much the entire field.
Right. And especially, Deathrite, Daze, Wasteland. I mean, all the, about as good of a hand as you can ask for in most matchups.
It's pretty much everything but, well, this one doesn't play Stifle. I was going to say everything but the Stifle, but they don't play those. But I mean, it's a very strong hand for Shu.
Yeah.
And we'll see if Kurt can keep on 6. I think one of the things we touched on earlier on lands is that it does have to mulligan sometimes. It really needs to have a gamble or a life from the loam in most of its openers. As we see, the last card drawn there was a gamble. That said, it mulligans so well. And we see, all right, from Shu, the turn 1 Deathrite Shaman. Remember, he does have both Wasteland and Daze available to him. And we'll see Mox Diamond from Kurt Spiess. And
I think he's going to be testing. He might be happy with the second Mox Diamond in his hand here. He might be trying to test Jeremy, try to induce a Daze.
Yeah, and the thing about Mox Diamond is that you have to, it's a trigger, right? When Mox Diamond comes into play, you discard a land or sacrifice it?
No, it's basically an as.
All right, but if it's countered, he doesn't lose.
Correct.
He doesn't lose the land. All right, so first diamond resolves, second diamond resolves, then a land and a punishing fire from Kurt, and suddenly Kurt's back in the driver's seat still.
Yeah.
He has 3 mana sources. Was Jeremy supposed to Daze at any point there? Now Jeremy's already down 1 land to 3 with no board. How does he stop this from happening?
Well, I think that use of Mox Diamond there out of Kurt is such a loud signal of, hey, go ahead. I want you to Daze this, because why wouldn't he lead with a land first? So Jeremy correctly identifies that to be the situation.
Yeah, that said, Jeremy actually has some more game here. Thanks to the hand he had, he has a backup Deathrite Shaman. He was able to Wasteland Kurt's Rishadan Port, and Kurt can't afford to gamble right now for Loam. Well, actually, he's going to go ahead and gamble for Loam. He's going to gamble for Loam and hope that Jeremy doesn't have a black source.
Yeah.
And he's going to be disappointed.
Yes. What an excellent draw here from Jeremy.
Another Wasteland, but yeah, he does find, we already had the polluted Delta, and we'll get the black and take care of that life from them before things get out of control. And with that, Kurt is now playing off the top of his deck, and Jeremy actually can start to press his advantage. He has an Abrupt Decay. He can mana deny the mana deck.
Yeah, and he also has a Tarmogoyf in hand too, so he's got a pretty fast clock here. This was exactly the right recipe of clock and disruption that Jeremy needed here.
Yeah, it was possible that Kurt could have gambled for Punishing Fire, attempted to Punishing Fire that Deathrite, but had he done that, he would have no way to get Loam.
Yeah. No, I think Kurt, he picked a good spot. He picked a good spot here. There's a reasonable chance there that Jeremy's out of mana, and in which case Kurt can start doing his thing. But Jeremy, that was the last piece of the puzzle to make basically a perfect hand.
All right, so Wooded Foothills drawn for Kurt, and this time Jeremy is going to be able to out-mana him. He has a Wasteland, he has a Tarmogoyf, he has an Abrupt Decay. And we'll see, he can lead off on the Abrupt Decay or the Goyf.
Right now I like getting Tarmogoyf in play, I think. While Kurt's vulnerable, not really doing anything, is a pretty good chance for Jeremy to press his advantage, try to close this out quickly. He can sit on his Wasteland and use Wasteland to blow up a utility land, most notably Mazavith, and really start clocking Kurt.
Yeah. One thing that I think he may want to do is take a break here and exile the Punishing Fire with Deathrite Shaman. There's a danger that if Kurt top decks first Grove of the Burn Willows and then Loam, that Kurt could recover from this board.
Sure.
So I think that's what Jeremy's doing. He pointed to the Punishing Fire. He wanted to make sure that he'd have a chance to exile it if Kurt does draw Grove. And he's going to go ahead and get rid of the Punishing Fire. He's becoming the control deck. He's going to control his zone outs here.
So
And-
in response, Kurt is activating this fetch land.
Yeah. And he's going to crop rotate away
Oh,
the Taiga.
and he can go and get Grove with this.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Shouldn't have waited, I guess.
Shouldn't have waited if he had done that in main phase to get the Punishing Fire, but now Kurt's well played.
Very nicely played.
I mean, things could get pretty bad for Jeremy here quick.
Well, Jeremy still has access to that wasteland, so he can stop this from getting too bad, but this is still pretty rough for Jeremy.
Well, so Kurt has the Punishing Fire. He didn't take 2. What it does mean is that if Kurt top decks the life from the loam, he's in business.
Yeah. His graveyard is now live again.
Yeah, and had Jeremy removed that on his main phase, I think he would have closed off this out. Jeremy's still ahead, shouldn't be too concerned yet. And actually, he has the days for the Punishing Fire, so pretty good on his part. And he'll get to correct and try again. And I think this time he's going to go ahead and waste the Grove and maybe main phase take out the Punishing Fire.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't mess around after that.
Yeah, we're asking,
I still like the idea of just getting your Tarmogoyf online here.
Yeah, he's going to take out Punishing Fire with Deathrite Shaman. I mean, I suppose your opponent could always top deck a Punishing Fire. You can just draw one, in which case... He's debating. Looks like he wants to waste away the Grove. I'm not sure how much he cares about... Yeah, he debated how much he cared now that there's not Punishing Fire, but he's going to go ahead and wasteland the Grove. And he passes back. Kurt with Rishadan Port. Going to go ahead and make the only play available to him. That's to port on upkeep. But thanks to Deathrite Shaman being a pretty star player here, and thanks to that, Jeremy still has access to his own mana.
Yeah.
And he's going to go ahead and cast. It looks like he's going to cast Tarmogoyf, and then he's going to do that by exiling Kurt's Wasteland.
Yeah, I like this play. If I was in Jeremy's spot, I probably would have tried to get this rolling a little bit sooner. As in front of he is right now in this game, his grasp is pretty tentative. It doesn't take a lot of draws from Kurt here. A Loam, a Punishing Fire, even a Mazavith can really stunt Jeremy's clock here. So
Yeah, and so Jeremy's, because I think he's aware of the top deck that could happen with a Life from the Loam, how does he prioritize which lands to take? He thought Wasteland was the biggest one and the one he had to hit the most. Mm-hmm. And that's probably correct. But, after that, what is it? Is it the fetch lands? Is it the Grove? Is it the ports? What is it that he needs to get rid of?
Well, once he's out in front, he cares a lot less about cards like Rishadan Port. So it's utility that can stop him from pressing his advantage. So that's Grove of the Burn Wills, cards like Mazavith, Tabernacle if it's in there, that kind of stuff. We're past the point where the mana dial matters very much.
All right, so 4/5 Tarmogoyf goes ahead and hits into Kurt. Post-combat, there's going to be a Ponder from Jeremy. He sees another Deathrite, a Tombstalker, and a Vendilion Click, all pretty live cards in this match.
Yep, pretty juicy Ponder right there. That's a lot of power. The Vendilion Click gives him information and possibly disrupts Kurt from some of his top decks, and the Tombstalker is a big clock as well.
Yeah. Second Deathrite Shaman, not shabby either, so he has a lot of great options available to him.
Yeah.
And we'll see which route he goes with. He has another Ponder in hand, so he could take 2 of these if he wanted. He still has Deathrite Shaman mana available. And he will draw a Vendilion Click. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and I think he's going to Abrupt Decay a Mox Diamond here.
No, I think he's
Maybe
just
not.
happy to sit on his Deathrite Shaman and keep draining. There's not a ton of difference between 2 and 3 mana, as Kurt can still cast Loam if he draws. He can also still cast Punishing Fire. So increasing the clock here is where I think Kurt needs to be.
And that's exactly what he does. He puts Kurt down to 9. Kurt did draw Thespian Stage for the turn. That means he is 1 Dark Depths away from possibly making a Merit Lage. But his life total is going down fast. Kurt at 9, and Jeremy has 6 damage showing on the board. So Kurt will need to draw Merit Lage immediately. And even then, I'm not positive it's enough to erase what's on the board.
Yeah.
So you can do, on upkeep, Kurt went ahead and ported Jeremy's Tropical Island, keeping Jeremy off green mana.
So Jeremy's got to decide how he wants to close this game out here.
Yeah, we see Ponder, Vendilion Click, Abrupt Decay, all options for Jeremy. One card remains in Kurt's hand. Jeremy does not have knowledge of the card. Probably assumes it's a land, which it is.
This is not a terrible spot in my mind to cast that Abrupt Decay, as it puts an artifact in the graveyard, therefore getting Tarmogoyf up to 5 power, which means that and 2 Deathrite Shaman activations are lethal.
Right. And by casting, he's going to go ahead and cast Abrupt Decay. I think had he decided on this line earlier, he should have done it when he got... No, he's going to go with Vendilion Click. If he'd gone with Abrupt Decay, he'd want to do it in response to the Port activation, so then he'd get the Decay and the Deathrite activation. He's going to go ahead and just V-click Kurt. Sees nothing and draws for turn. It's going to be Tombstalker. This was all on his upkeep.
Yeah, in response to the Port activation.
And just Tarmogoyf swings in. No swing from Deathrite there. Deathrite's going to stay back and remove a land. And puts down to Kurt down to 5. That'll make next turn lethal. Deathrite removes. And he's picking a ladder. He's going to go with the Grove of the Burnwills. Like you said, taking the utility. Going to cast a Ponder. Sees more cards. Deathrite, Brainstorm, Force of Will. Doesn't have a blue card in hand, so he can't just automatically have it here. But even so, the only card that really competes with him right now, well, I was going to say is a Dark Depths to make it 20/20, but I think he can actually push 5 damage past even a Merit Lage.
With his 2 attackers and the Deathrite Shaman, not even that's going to get Kurt out of this.
Yeah, a great starting hand by Jeremy. A great was able to actually establish tempo against this deck.
See a Tranquil Thicket cycled, and that's going to do it. So on to game 3 we go. Jeremy able to take game 2 on the back of, I wouldn't say a perfect hand, but pretty close to ideal.
Yeah, really a strong show there. So, and that just kind of shows, I think, all the pieces that actually have to be present for it to go in Jeremy's favor. He needed a turn 1 Deathrite Shaman on the play. He needed a Daze. He actually needed a second Deathrite Shaman, and he needed a pair of Wastelands. And when all those pieces came together, he was actually able to, thanks to the tempo he had from being on the play, out-tempo the lands deck.
And on the other side of the bracket, we have those competitors going to a 3rd game as well.
Yeah, it's Rudy Brixa and Daryl Ayers. Remember, they're playing Deathblade and Rug Delver. The winner of that will face the winner of this in the finals. So both of them become best-of-1 affairs.
Kurt with a pretty big edge here on the play in a favorable matchup. But again, his deck is really hubbed around Loam here. If he doesn't draw it, or if Jeremy has enough disruption through Deathrite Shaman and counter spells here, Jeremy can still steal this 3rd game.
Absolutely. And yeah, this is going to be hard. So let's go over. Okay, that was a pretty good hand on the plate, and we saw kind of the recipe Jeremy needs to follow to get a game in this matchup.
Yeah.
Now on the draw, it feels like that plan doesn't really work anymore. He doesn't get to have the Daze. He's a turn later on the Deathrite activations. Does his formula change, or does he need Kurt not to have the answers?
It's more of the second thing, I think. All those pieces can still be good. I think that having Deathrite Shaman is so much more important when he's on the draw, because the value of his soft permission goes down so much. The Dazes and Spell Piercers are just much less effective. He might not even get an opportunity to play them. We saw in the first game. Jeremy essentially died with a Daze unused.
Yeah.
So mulliganing pretty aggressively, I think, for Deathrite Shaman or for Delver of Secrets. It's really hard, I believe, to justify a hand that doesn't have one of his 1-mana creatures.
Yeah, and well, that was really the problem game 1. Kurt was on the play. He played Exploration on turn 1, played a second land, which was a Reshit Import, and then you look at a Daze in your hand if you're Jeremy. First of all, there's too many lands in play. Daze probably won't counter anything. Second of all, you really don't want to pick up a land against a player who has Reshit Imports as early as Kurt does.
Yeah, there's a lot of squeezes going on against the soft counters in Jeremy's deck here. But when he's on the front foot, those can become pretty powerful things, as he's shortening the number of turns, even though in the long term you can't beat a card like Life from the Loam with cards like Daze and Spell Pierce. In the short term, backed up with enough pressure, it's a reasonable game plan.
Yeah, and as we saw that last game, Kurt actually had a pretty good mull to 6. One of the scarier starts from lands can be turn 1 multiple Mox Diamond Life from the Loam hand. Kurt had all those pieces except that the Loam was a gamble. Jeremy was able to use permission to stop the gamble from resolving and was able to get the game. All right, we are on to game 3. We will see Kurt's hand on the play. He has 5 lands, crop rotation, gamble. So has pieces there, but it is a little slow.
Well, he does get the opportunity to get a Loam here potentially on on the first turn through his gamble, and then has a cycle land and some utility to back it up. So I don't think this is a mulligan from Kurt.
No, so the plan here is then to go under Deathrite Shaman by immediately finding Loam and then playing Protect the Loam.
Yeah.
All right.
He also has crop rotation as potential additional fuel for this start. Puts another land in his graveyard for Loam, allows him to get some utility as well.
Yeah, and one of the neat parts about crop rotation in this newer lands build that players have been playing is that it also is this combo piece, right? There's a two land combo to make a 20/20. So you see there's Thespian Stage in Kurt's hand. If crop rotation finds Dark Depths, we could see a very early Merit Lage too.
Yeah.
And interestingly, so he's going to play turn 1 Grove. He's not going to gamble for Life from the Loam.
I think he wants to cycle his Tranquil Thicket first. That sets up a better Loam down the line because he can cast that. He can cast that gamble kind of whenever. He's not going to run it into a Daze or a Spell Pierce. So.
Now, you had said he was doesn't that, by losing Tranquil Thicket, he loses the ability to protect Loam. But you're absolutely right. He's going to go ahead and cycle here.
Well, he doesn't need to protect it now. Maybe if Deathrite Shaman was the first play of the game that Jeremy made, it's a different equation. But with it being Delver of Secrets, the coast is clear.
Right. All right. So with Grove, next draw is going to be Reshad Import for Kurt. Similarly, instead of gambling for Loam, it is possible he could gamble for Punishing Fire here. He also has Grove.
It's also possible that he's just going to go on a pretty aggressive mana denial plan. He has 2 Reshad Imports and a Wasteland in his hand. These Delver decks don't play a lot of lands, so he might be able to cut Jeremy off of mana entirely and then kind of win at his own convenience.
Yeah. That is also a plan. The Delver of Secrets, because he had a turn 1 Delver, that means he'll take a lot of damage if he goes on that plan.
Yes.
But again, a lot of damage isn't all the damage, so very possible that he can just play it that way as well.
A lot of paths here for Kurt. And we've seen some very impressive play from him thus far.
So we will see which one he wants to go ahead and do here.
Appears to be a lot of commentary coming from the peanut gallery, as you can hear the laughter in the background.
All right, and Wasteland will be the option he chooses. He's going to go ahead and waste the Underground Sea, challenge Jeremy on just how many lands he actually kept. And
now that he's no longer playing around Daze, he can go ahead and gamble.
he's going to gamble. We'll see Punishing Fire, Life from the Loam. What's our call?
With Wasteland set up, I think it's pretty attractive to get Loam here.
All right, and he grabs, it looks like he's gonna go with, he's contemplating, he grabbed Punishing Fire, and now he's looking for Loam. You're right, seeing which one he wants. Don't think he's decided yet.
No, I don't think so either. But the thing is, once Loam gets going, there's so many awesome cards that he can flip over from here. He can flip over Punishing Fire, obviously. He can also flip over cards like Maze of Ith or Tabernacle that really supplement his game plan. So it's not just about what's happening next turn, but what Loam sets him up for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, and Loam really is the engine of his deck. I think he contemplated being able to answer the Delver, but in the end, he decided that, Loam is the best card in this deck.
Yeah.
It'd be a shame to not have one.
He might have to take it on the chin for a little while, but Kurt has a lot of draws, Punishing Fire most notably, and if Jeremy's tight on mana, Tabernacle, Maze of Ith, these are all things that can answer that Delver of Secrets.
All right, so as you know with Gamble, you find a card, then you lose a random card. He's going to lose card 6, and that is the Life from the Loam. It's questionable whether or not he wanted it in his hand or in his yard. I think he would have preferred to have discarded something else there.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case because I think he gets a lot of value from dredging this turn. He really needs to find some sort of piece of utility to answer whatever Jeremy's board is going to look like. So having an earlier shot at something like Punishing Fire, Maze of Ith, Tabernacle, what have you, I think is actually good for Kurt.
The difference is, I suppose, when it's in his hand, he gets to draw a card. Here he doesn't get to draw a card, but he gets to mill 3 cards. And depending on what he's looking for, milling 3 may be better than drawing 1. And so, yeah, he'll go ahead and dredge. He gets Thespian Stage, Reshad Import, and Wasteland all in the yard. A pretty spicy dredge there. Granted, he did not get the other half of his combo. These are all redundant copies of lands that he already has.
And now we're in the stage where Kurt is going to have to wade his way through Jeremy's various soft permission. Now, because Kurt doesn't have a card like Mana Bonds or like Exploration, the Loam is a little anemic right now.
Yeah.
Jeremy certainly has to care if one of the powerful lands comes up here, but as long as it's like this, It's not too bad for Jeremy, but again, he never knows when he's going to lose his opportunity to use this soft permission. His mana can be tied up doing other things like casting additional creatures or cantrips, and so he's going to want to pick his spots where he can actually land some of this counter.
So when you say the powerful lands, you mean like Maze of Ith, for example?
For example, yes.
Yeah, as long as he's countering the Loam every time, once the Stelper flips, Jeremy will actually have a clock. He can start to swing. Kurt is playing fair right now. He's only playing 1 land per turn.
And you can see how much different it is when this deck has access to additional mana. Even something like a Mox Diamond will allow Kurt to do a lot more here.
Yeah, so if you're Kurt, you could draw cards to try to hit one of those unfair enablers, or do you just kind of take it on the chin that this is going to be a fair game? You're going to play 1 land per turn.
I think you've got to take it on the chin because you have a lot of really powerful draws off of your loaming. Once you start finding Maze of Iths or Wastelands or Ports, assuming that you're not too far behind, it's really hard for Jeremy to get out of that kind of stuff as we saw in the first game.
Yeah, if you just start making more and more Maze of Iths. Remember, there are a full 4 Maze of Iths in this lands deck.
And Thespian Sage can also copy Maze of Ith. It's not just for Dark Depths.
So you can have 8 Maze of Iths. Yeah, Daze will counter Life from the Loam. Overall, that seems like a pretty innocuous Life from the Loam to me. You know, it didn't actually have one of those power cards in there.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But again, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to landing these counter spells. The door closes for their effectiveness pretty early on in the game. And so even though that's not a high-powered Loam, who knows if there's an opportunity to use that Daze for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and Jeremy, going to brainstorm with that mana he floated before the Daze. He actually has found a lot more permission here. After the 3 cards drawn, he has a Force of Will, a blue card, and a Spell Pierce, so he can counter quite a few Life from the Loams. And imagine we'll see the next one get Spell Pierced.
Yeah, any turn that Jeremy's not advancing his board by casting a creature, he needs to be spending his mana, using his permission as effectively as he possibly can.
Yeah, the downside is that in order to cast the Daze, Jeremy had to bounce a land into his hand, so he is back down to 0 lands. He still has a Delver of Secrets. It has not yet flipped into Insectile Aberration, however. And as a result, Jeremy is going to go... Kurt is still at 19. This time, though, he was able to set it up to flip. And Spell Pierce is drawn, and now the 1/1 has become a 3/2.
And revealing Spell Pierce here might compel Kurt to just draw a card instead of dredging Loam, as he knows that that just gets pierced next turn.
Yeah, there's not too much advantage into just playing into a Spell Pierce. Verdant Catacombs was a land for Jeremy. That's a wasteland-proof land. And we'll see whether he dredges or draws. He's still going to dredge.
Yeah, I guess in this spot, still milling over and getting more utility in your graveyard is too important.
Yep, Loam, Thespian Stage, and Mox Diamond were the mills. Still none of those power lands you're talking about, so Jeremy's game plan still intact. And Loam will be cast from Kurt. You see, right, you were suspecting a Spell Pierce here. Then again, okay, let's say he doesn't, you're saying he'd Spell Pierce now because the Spell Pierce will die soon, right?
Yeah, unless he needs to keep blue spells in his hand and he's just planning on using Force of Wills to stop Kurt's most impactful stuff.
Yeah, like right now, the Loam's not getting back any lands that Jeremy should be too scared of. I mean, getting back Wastelands certainly is a threat. Jeremy only will have 2 lands, but it's possible he can just let Kurt have these. You know, there's already a Loam in the yard. This Loam will be in the yard whether he counters it or lets it resolve. Kurt presumably already has a lot. You know, it's not like Kurt's going to miss land drops anytime soon.
Right.
All right. And while these players duke it out in Game 3, we have an opponent in the finals, and that will be the overall #1 seed. That is Daryl Ayers taking down Rudy Brixa 2-1. Daryl into the finals with Rug Delver. Pretty powerful to be able to play Rug Delver and be on the play every single match.
Yeah, it's for a deck that's hubs so much about getting out on the front foot and using disruption to keep someone off. Being on the play is a huge deal. And you see a Spell Pierce here. And it looks like they're just figuring out what target's got announced, but it doesn't matter. Spell Pierce on the Loam, and that is countered.
All right. And now we do still have that crop rotation in Kurt's hand, and I'm wondering if there gets to be a point where crop rotation will go and find Maze of Ith for him here.
Well, again, this is not Rug Delver he's playing against. There's no burn, so he has all of his life points to work with.
Yeah.
So I think that Kurt is going to wait till the last possible moment when he doesn't have to worry about counter spells or when his hand is forced by a wasteland.
Yeah, he also has the option to find Wastelands and crop rotate into Tabernacle to take care of these
Yeah.
creatures.
But he is falling behind a little bit on the board. Again, Kurt doesn't have any of his cheat cards in play. No mana bonds, no exploration. So it's hard for him to leverage all of his resources right now.
All right, and 4/5 Tarmogoyf is made for Jeremy, and now Kurt should be a little concerned. He's going to dredge loam again. He finds Exploration, Gamble, one other land, still not any of those utility lands he's looking for, and things start, I'm going to say they're getting a little rough for him. He's going to tap to float of colorless, crop rotate away the Rishiden port. And thoughts on what he's getting here?
I would suspect Maze of Ith, but I'm not really sure. Unless he's going for the Thespian Sage combo, unless he's trying to set that up. But, you know, he's so far behind in terms of mana of getting all that set up that...
Well, he hasn't played a land this turn, right? And he has a colorless floating. So he could actually just make one this turn.
Yes, this is true. He's actually ready to go right now, and Jeremy's going to fight over this.
Yep, Force of Will on crop rotation. So he can't find the combo now, but that does mean he gets life from the loam. He's going to go ahead and cast loam. He's cleverly not made his land drop yet. He wants to see if he can get that whole combo together. But things are going to be rough for him. I don't know if he has enough time to put together that combo.
Yeah, I mean, Goyf and Insectile Aberration, this is a 2-turn clock here. Jeremy also with Tombstalker in hand, so he has more pressure to go over the top of a potential Maze of Ith.
Yeah, he's going to get Wasteland, Tranquil Thicket, and a Fetch Land. He has a couple options. He can try to waste Jeremy down and then mill into Tabernacle to get rid of his creatures, or he can develop his mana base. He's going to go with Wooded Foothills. And right now, looks like he's going to take 7 next turn. And it could be that Jeremy has broken the prison twice. A pretty good spot here.
And he has brought in the Creeping Tar Pit, looking for some additional mana.
All right, 7 damage is coming across at Kurt. That will put him down to a low 6 life. And yeah, he's going to need some answers next turn. I don't know precisely what he's going for.
Well, Maze of Ith still covers him for the time being.
Yeah, for a turn. Well, if Jeremy has another land, it actually just doesn't.
Yeah, based on Jeremy's hand right now, which is an uncastable Tombstalker, uncastable this turn, and a Force of Will. So nothing to advance his board here. Yeah, a land kills him here, but for the time being, Maze of Ith is still a live draw.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and cycle the Tranquil Thicket. I don't think he's going to dredge on this draw either. I don't see what he would be getting out of the graveyard. He can't really combo right now. Yep, just going to draw a card, and he hits...
Mana Bonds.
Mana Bond's not bad. It's a little late, but...
Yeah, he still needs... I mean, Mana Bonds can be really good here if he finds a utility land to stave off lethal.
Now, Mana Bond lets him put all his lands into play.
Yes.
If he draws Dark Depths, then he can put the entire combo into play with enough mana to activate it. It certainly is anywhere between a 2 of and 4 of outer here, but that's one line he can take.
Now that he's drawn Mana Bonds, I think he has to loam. He gets so many good look. There's Dark Depths. There's Thespian Sage.
I just want he would have drawn Dark Depths. He would have hit that outer if he had drawn. I mean, obviously you can't play that way.
Right.
But all right, and he's gonna go ahead and cast Life from the Loam. No counterspell from Shu. And he can loam back a huge... He'll still get the combo going, I believe. So he has a huge number of lands. Still has not found a Maze of Ith, and that's pretty important. He can get back 3 more lands, play a land, cast Mana Bond, get the rest of his lands into play.
I mean, it essentially has to be just... He needs to basically make a token and ideally Wasteland as well to keep Jeremy off of killing him.
And does he have enough lands? So he's going to get Wasteland. I think he still may be alive here. Wasteland, Thespian Stage.
He has a lot of mana in his hand. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. Wasteland, Thespian Sage, Dark Depths. Going to play Rishiden Port. He's going to tap and cast Mana Bond. And the counterspell's not there for Jeremy. So we'll get Mana Bond, one of the more peculiar cards. During your discard, you may choose to put all land cards from your hand into play. If you do, discard the rest of your hand. This is one of the really not This card's really abusive in the deck.
Yeah.
They let him play about 6 lands in 1 turn.
Yeah, you can't play a ton of them because it's all predicated on having loam to get this to be powerful. But once you're there, this allows him to do some really cheaty stuff.
And this.
And you're about to see it.
Yeah. So he's going to go ahead and put all of them into play. Well, they are all lands. He has 10 ice counters. So let's count this through. He has 10 ice counters on the Dark Depths. He has 2 wastelands. So he can make a 20/20 and wasteland twice this turn. And what seemed like a really tight bind for Kurt.
Yeah, that mana bond flips it all around now.
Yep. Creeping Tarpon is wastelanded. He's going to wasteland, presumably wasteland again. And my guess is he'll waste Jeremy off black. The reason being, if Jeremy top decks a Deathrite Shaman, then he could play Deathrite, activate Deathrite to get black mana and deal the final points of damage.
Well, I mean, Jeremy's just going to, he's going to be on chump block detail
Yeah.
with this Insight Dial aberration, but.
And the draw for the turn is Deathrite Shaman, so keeping Jeremy off black is relevant here.
And Kurt with that mana bonds. And remember, he still has loam in hand, so additional utility lands could be coming into play here.
Well, he has Tranquil Thicket in the yard too, so this can get really big. You know,
Yeah.
he can loam, dredge loam, re-loam. With all the mana he has, he could loam a large number of times in the same turn.
Jeremy seems a little bit in shock right now by how this game got turned around.
It really felt like he was going to win it.
He was so far ahead. Kurt was doing nothing.
Well, and I think that's when we say, lands is one of these corner strategies. It's because when you play 35 lands in your deck, you can play cards like Mana Bond, which really, the game has this rule of 1 land per turn. When a player gets to play 6 in 1 turn, that's really breaking one of the walls.
Yeah.
You feel like you shouldn't be able to lose from this state because in normal Magic you can't. Players don't do things like play 6 lands in a turn with a 1 mana card. But you're right.
Jeremy looking through the graveyard again. Was there potentially a discrepancy with how large the Tarmogoyf was on 1 turn?
It is possible they had not been counting enchantment. So you have land, enchantment, instant.
Artifact.
Is there a sorcery anywhere?
Loam.
So the Tarmogoyf should have been a 5. It depends if it was for 1 turn or 2 turns. If it's for 2 turns, that will affect the outcome here.
Yeah, but there is a die in play, and
Yeah, that is.
there is a burden on Jeremy to be the one maintaining that.
Absolutely, it's not a scum play there. So correct me wrong if I'm ruling. If the judge will deem whether or not it is a intentional misleading by a player, whether it's an accidental misleading. If it's accidental, which it almost likely is, both players will receive a game warning for not maintaining game state. But then this will be the board state.
Yeah, and it's not Kurt's responsibility. And
Right.
I actually was in Jeremy's position at Grand Prix Portland, where I was the one keeping track of a Tarmogoyf. Actually didn't have the right size. I was shorting myself, and once that was discovered, we couldn't back up. Too much of the game had proceeded.
Exactly.
And it's my responsibility to be maintaining that die in the first place.
Now, to be fair, if Kurt sees the die and notices that the die is wrong and intentionally doesn't fix it, that is a whole nother world of penalties.
Right, but it's really
You can't really
hard
prove
to
that.
it's really hard to derive any intent here. And Kurt's turns have been so complicated.
Right.
He has more than enough to focus on his own here.
Yeah, and I don't know how long it's been that large for. Really does, yeah. The board state as it is the board state is how it's going to be. And we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah, right now the judge is talking to the head judge to see how this gets ruled here. But, I had, again, experience very similar to this at Grand Prix Portland. And it is, it's public information. It's primarily Jeremy's responsibility to be the one checking his Tarmogoyf. That die in play is, that's the information. If both players are checking life totals and writing it down, then that just is what it is.
Well, when the game is progressed improperly, you generally have to decide if significant game progress has been made since the error. If it's not retraceable, if you can't go back to when the first Tarmogoyf swing was incorrectly, you go back to when the first error was made. If you can back up to that spot without significant decisions being made, and that's a judge call, then the judge is allowed to do so. In this situation, lots of turns, lots of decisions have been made based on the wrong information. In that case, you just let the board state stand as is now. It is immediately corrected. And that's how the board will, that's where you'll progress from. Then the question is, what penalties are assessed? And by and large, the penalty is warnings to players unless there's some, unless there's some extenuating circumstance.
Yeah.
If this was, say, the third warning one of these players had on this in the tournament, then there could be an upgrade on the penalty chain.
So we're waiting right now to get a ruling here on how this is going to proceed. Again, Kurt here threatening to make a Merit Age token. Kurt currently at 5 life. Appears that we have a judge coming over to speak to this.
Yeah, and this is something that, you would prefer to never see this happen, especially not in the top 4 of an event. But, there are a lot of moving pieces, especially in a deck like Lands. It is not in, this will happen every once in a while in a game of Magic. And it's more important, I think, to be consistent with how a resolution happens when, when this sort of thing occurs.
Right. And I think Jeremy's also saying, this exploration is in a foreign language, this Mox Diamond is in a foreign language. It's just hard to be, not the Mox Diamond, because obviously the frame indicates that it's an artifact, but if Jeremy's not familiar with all the pieces here, then he may be saying, well, I didn't know that that was an enchantment. But again, it's public information. He can ask for clarification in any spot where there's any sort of confusion. Now, if I recall correctly, this Tarmogoyf only got to attack once. In which case, if we're short a point of damage, that means this attack is still not lethal.
Yeah. All right, and we are awaiting official ruling here. Right now, if you're joining us, we are in Game 3 of the top 4 here in the Star City Legacy Open in Baltimore, Maryland. And it looks like we have resumed play. This is Kurt Spiess versus Jeremy Hsu. It's Game 3. Winner will move on to the finals to face Daryl Ayers. And we will relay the ruling as soon as we have it. And it looks like there was no attack there. The draft fight that Shaman was played. Merit Lage was made. And now Kurt down to 3. Or could be down to 3 next turn off Deathrite Shaman if Jeremy hits a black source.
Yeah, the judge ruled that the game has progressed too far and it will simply continue as is.
Yeah, immediately the Tarmogoyf does immediately become a 5/6. It is corrected. It's not going to be the wrong size, but.
So now with mana bonds, we've seen this trick before out of Kurt, where he's basically going to loam back the combo and make an untapped blocker. I wouldn't also be surprised to see him wasteland Jeremy as part of his loam here as well.
Yeah, so we see the loam was dredged. Loam will be cast again. Insectile Aberration was chump blocked. Now with the creature in the yard, the Goyf grows yet again. From lethal to still lethal. Kurt gets to decide which lands he wants. He's going to go ahead and loam back. It looks like a wasteland, maybe even 2 wastelands. Yeah, wasteland, dark depths were the cards that he loams back. And because of mana bond, he'll go to Zenstep and play all 3 of them. And Dark Depths once again has 10 counters on it. He's going to immediately, on his still on Zenstep, wasteland Jeremy's final land. And he's going to go ahead and make another Merit Lage. Legend ruling his old Merit Lage. And here we are.
So Jeremy needs to find a green source of mana to be able to remove his Delver to survive this attack next turn.
And he finds Abrupt Decay. That will be no help. He has no flying
Locks it
blockers.
up.
And Kurt Spiess on to the finals, winning 2 games, 1 over Jeremy Hsu, where he will face Daryl Ayers.
Another impressive win there for Kurt. Just another game, just like Game 3 in round